Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. The title of today's lesson slash segment is Here is Proof, Want of All Things. Once again, today's lesson slash segment is Here is Proof, Want of All Things. Now, the children of Israel, once scattered to the four corners of the earth, we're supposed to bear witness to the Most High's words that they are indeed true. And to bear witness, one must see. And in order to see, you must be alive. A dead man sees nothing. In order to experience the blessings of the Most High, you are to be alive. In order to experience the curses of the Most High, you are to be alive. A dead man knows nothing. A dead man feels nothing. A dead man can do nothing. So to experience either the blessings which are brought to us, courtesy of the Most High, or the curses and the evil which is brought courtesy of the Most High, we must be alive. All right, once again, brace yourselves, tighten up your jaws, do not turn to the left or to the right, or you will get hit in the mouth. We're to walk the straight and narrow way of the Most High's commandments. We're not to deviate to the right hand or to the left. We must walk the straight and narrow way. All right. Many of our people are seeing some things. Though they look at it, they are not aware of what they're looking at. Some of us are experiencing some things, going through some things. We have no idea why we're experiencing these things, and we have no idea what it is that we are experiencing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through the scrolls, the holy text, coming straight from Moshe, via the Most High. That way we can understand clearly what it is that we are experiencing and what we are seeing. Not only that, I will explain in context so you understand exactly, okay, this is what I'm seeing. Okay, this is why this is happening. Not only will I lay out for you what you're experiencing and why, you will also get to fix it. You will know at the end of this lesson exactly what do we need to do to fix it. Most of us don't know exactly what it is. We're baffled and confused in these nations because we've been made dumb in these nations. So once the light is shined before you, then you have a clear path by which to walk. All right, we will start in chapter 28 of Deuteronomy. Chapter 28 of Deuteronomy. We must explain to the children of Israel exactly what is happening to them and why. Because many of our people have no idea why all of these things are befalling us. We are baffled and confused in a state of disarray in the midst of our enemies. All right. Here is proof that the Most High's words are true, and we will be looking towards our enemies for the want of all things. All right, Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 1, and it reads, And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of Yah thy strength, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that Yah thy strength will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. All right. If we are to obey the voice of the Most High, we will be the leaders of the entire earth. In all the other families of the earth, these families are nations. Remember that. The house of Israel is a nation of a specific family, a bloodline. There can be no grafting into another man's bloodline. So all the other families who are the other nations, they will be led by the house of Israel. The house of Israel, our designated purpose, our sole purpose is to lead all, not some, but all nations or all the other families of, of the entire earth. We are to be above them. Now let's step back. Hold Deuteronomy chapter 28. Let's step back to Deuteronomy chapter 7. Move back to Deuteronomy. Let's go back to chapter 7. And chapter 7, verse 6 of Deuteronomy reads. Chapter 7, verse 6 of Deuteronomy reads, For thou art an holy people unto Yah thy strength. Yah thy strength has chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, singular, above all people that are upon the face of the earth. So once again, the house of Israel, we were chosen to be a special people, a holy people unto the Most High, unto himself. Himself does not indicate a trinity. Himself is one. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4. Hear, O Israel, Yah is one, not three. So we are to be a special people unto the Most High. We are to be a holy people unto the Most High. We are special above all the nations that are upon the face of the earth. So why is it that we're seeking to be equal to other people? We're seeking for equality. There is no equality upon the face of the earth for the children of Israel, for we are above all nations. So says the Most High. End of story. No discussions, no disputes, and no debates. You are to be above all the nations upon the face of the earth. We were chosen to teach the Most High's righteousness to all these wicked nations that are upon the face of the earth. And these nations are nothing but families. These are bloodlines. Now let's move to verse 2 of Deuteronomy chapter 28. And verse 2 reads, And all these blessings shall come upon thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of Yah thy strength. So we're going to be blessed in abundance, to where no matter where you go, you can't help but get blessed. No matter what you do, you can't help but get blessed, because you're walking in the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts that you were commanded and instructed to walk in. Let's move down to verse 9 of Deuteronomy chapter 28. And verse 9 reads of Deuteronomy chapter 28, Yah shall establish thee an holy people unto himself, singular, as he hath sworn unto thee. That's that covenant. If thou shalt keep the commandments of Yah thy strength and walk in his ways. So all of these good things and these blessings will come upon us if we were to walk in the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. We have been afforded these blessings, these courtesies. We have been afforded these things in times past. Our forefathers has experienced this in the Holy Land. But since we have been thrusted out, because we chose to walk against the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, precepts, we have not known any of these blessings in these lands. For we have been walking in idolatry from the time that we have been booted out. Let's move down to verse 10 of Deuteronomy chapter 28. And verse 10 reads, And all people of the earth shall see that thou art called by the name of Yah, and they shall be afraid of thee. So we're supposed to be the nation's leaders. We're supposed to be a holy people. We're the Most High's people, specifically chosen by him to teach his laws to these nations. We are to be the leaders. We are to be the head and not the tail. But because of our rebellion, things have gone in reverse. Now let's move to Deuteronomy chapter 28. Let's move over to Deuteronomy chapter 2. Deuteronomy chapter 2. And let's read verse 25. And Deuteronomy chapter 2, verse 25 reads, This day will I begin to put the dread of thee and the fear of thee upon the nations that are under the whole heaven, who shall hear reports of thee and shall tremble and be in anguish because of thee. So, as we turn back onto the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts, then the fear and the dread of all of these nations, all right, they will be fearful of you. For when you are moving in righteousness and you are moving in Torah, the Most High is before you. When you come through, they get out of the way, and they will do everything to assist you. And all of your enemies will be at peace with you and seek to do things for you, and they will be in service to you. And they will be fearful of you. Why? Because the Most High is the spirit of all living things. These people that are killing you and acting like it's okay and will tell you that it's okay, the Most High put a spirit upon them to treat you this way. And as he has put that spirit of evil upon them to discipline you, Once we turn back onto the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts, he will discipline them, and they will be fearful and in service to you. But in order for us to reap these rewards, we must first have a change of heart to turn away from wickedness onto the Most High's righteousness. And therein lies our protection, and therein lies our rewards. All right? So we're to be mindful of that. They're supposed to be fearful of us. Somehow you're teaching your children to be fearful of them. When the car pull you over, do this, do that. When the unrighteous man does this, the Christian, when they do this to you, you do this and you do that. You cower to them. You're fearful of them. Why? Because you don't walk in Torah. You are serving some other God that has not delivered you for 500 plus years in these nations. A matter of fact, longer than that, since we've been booted out of the Holy Land. You've been walking after idols in these nations. And all of this time of you doing this, you have not been delivered. And you don't know why. And you continue to go after falsehood that continues to lead you to a dead end. And you have not learned, for you have not considered your ways and your doings. All right. Let's move down to verse 13 of Deuteronomy chapter 28. And verse 13 reads, "And Yah shall make thee the head and not the tail." The head leads. You will not find any animal that's running around anywhere that the head is in the back. The head is up front. The head leads, and the tail follows. Once again, verse 13, "And Yah shall make thee the head and not the tail, and thou shalt be above only, and thou shalt not be beneath." Once again, the head of all nations, above all nations, never to be beneath them. The only time that we're going to be beneath these nations is when we decide to walk contrary to laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. The only time that we're going to be the tail is when we decide to take the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. We're going to ball that thing up, chuck it behind our back. Now, the minute you do that, all of a sudden, there is no light before you. Now we are in darkness. We are stumbling all over the place. We can't see where we're going, and we're falling into the traps and snares that's been set before us. So we understand clearly that we are to be the head. We're not to be the tail. We are to be the lead and not the follower. Okay? "If thou shalt hearken unto the commandments of Yah thy strength, which I command thee this day, to observe and to do them." So we see from Moshe to all the other prophets, all the way down to the very last prophet of the Most High, down to Malachi, it's follow the law, follow the law, follow the law, follow the law, follow the law. That's all you're going to hear. And you have allowed your enemies in the midst of these nations to tell you that there is no law. You have lost your mind. Verse 14, and it reads, "And thou shalt not go outside from any of the words which I command thee this day, to the right hand or to the left, to go after other gods to serve them." So we were strictly warned we were not to go outside of those words. What words? Torah, the law. You go outside the Torah, you start finding things that's new. You start finding things that's different. You start finding things that's never been done before. You start hearing about things that has never been taught to us by the prophets. You start hearing of things that contradict the Most High's law. This is what happens when you begin to add things that are new, things that are unheard of, such as a New Testament. I've told you before, new means something that's never been seen or never been used before. It's unheard of. Testament means truth. The truth does not get old, the truth does not get new, and the truth does not get different. The truth is the one thing in the earth that can withstand the test of time. Whether it be past, present, or future, the truth is unchangeable. And so is the Most High. Malachi 3 verse 6. He changes absolutely not. He is consistent. For if he changed, then from one generation to the next generation of the house of Israel, the information will be different and confusing. But his words will stand. That's why when you see these idolaters calling themselves prophets and all these other things, we don't have any prophets, nor will we ever have any new prophets. Because when we had the true prophets giving us the word, we didn't listen. So now, in order for us to return back onto the Most High, we are going to be we're going to have to revert back to the prophets of the day of old. This is why we have the book of remembrance. This book of remembrance is to bring us to remembrance. There will be no new prophets. The word has not changed from Moshe to now, from Abraham to now, from Adam to now. The Most High has not changed, neither has his laws. So you don't need any new prophets. What for? You didn't listen to the old ones. And if you had any new prophets, they would do nothing but reiterate what the old prophets have said to you. Very simple. All right. Let's look at Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 2. Still hold Deuteronomy chapter 28. Deuteronomy chapter 4. Deuteronomy chapter 4 and verse 2 reads, Ye shall not add unto the word which I command thee, neither shall ye diminish aught from it, that ye may keep the commandments of Yah your strength, which I command you. Once again, when you start speaking of a new truth, and that's what New Testament means, new truth. And I've just explained to you a second ago, and many years in times past in these videos, that the truth doesn't get old, new, or different. It does not change. You cannot change the truth. It is impossible. So we are not to add. So when someone comes and tells you of something new, you have added to the Most High's word. We were specifically commanded not to do this. Let's move down to verse 15. Deuteronomy chapter 28. And we're at verse 15. Giving you proof. That way when you look around and you see what's going on, you understand clearly what's happening. And you don't think that somehow this is some kind of an accident or a coincidence of some sort. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of Yah thy strength, to observe to do all, not some, but all of his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. All right, so when you decide you don't want to walk in Torah, you don't want to do what you are commanded to do, and you don't want to do what you are created to do. The house of Israel, we are created and we were chosen for a specific purpose. And that purpose is to take the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts and teach it to the nations. The reason why the earth is in such a mess and the people of the earth are in gross darkness is because those, the house of Israel, who are supposed to bring forth the light, have disregarded it and abandoned their post. And so therefore the whole entire earth is in darkness because you, O man of Israel, you have failed to do your job. And channels such as this is to bring you to remembrance of exactly who you are and what your purpose is, that you may stand up in your lot and do what you were created to do. And that is to walk in these laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. That is to teach it and to lead all nations upon the face of the earth. Stop complaining and seeking for equality. There is none. We are the head of all of these nations. Period. Why seek to be equal to an unrighteous man? We are in the midst of our enemies. We are in the midst of those who have no regard and no respect unto the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts. Why would you seek to be equal with an evil man, with an unrighteous man? How silly is that? You are supposed to be the leader, but you want to seek to be equal with a man that's not been he's not been prophesied to have a leadership role. You want to share your leadership role with those who are not worthy. And no matter what you say and what you try to do, you could never change that. Some of you, you're so mentally destroyed, you can't even fathom that your people are actually that special and that they are the leaders of the whole entire earth. Some of you are so destroyed, you can't even fathom that for 1 second. But for those of you who can read this text, see it, hear it, and understand it, and will take a hold of it and do it, you will bear witness to the fact that this is indeed true. And it certainly changes the way you act once you understand that you're not just the scum of the earth like your enemies have taught you. So when we read Torah, if your God does not empower you, he's not a God. When you read Torah and you understand who we are, it changes your entire perspective on life and everything around you. This law will strengthen you. We are to get out of the back and get up front. Get out of this New Testament, get up front to the Most High's words, his laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts by way of his prophets. We are to be up front because we are to lead. If you're looking for the Most High within this book, you're going to find him up front because the Most High leads us. He don't walk behind us. So do you understand that? So no matter what we do, we can't dodge these curses. We can't immigrate to other nations and hide from them. Your money will not insulate you from them. Nothing can cause you to actually escape these curses. The Most High said it will follow us and it will overtake us. It doesn't matter where you go. That's why when you move from one nation and you try to go into the next nation, you see that the laws that's been made up against you, it goes everywhere you go. The hardships that you will find is everywhere. A man of Israel can find no rest in any of the nations where he dwells. For this law, these curses will follow you and they will overtake you. There's no hiding from them. Verse 20, still in Deuteronomy chapter 28. And Yah shall send upon thee curse and vexation and rebuke in all that thou settest thine hand to do, or settest thine hand unto for to do, until thou be destroyed, and until thou perish quickly, because of the wickedness of thy doings, whereby thou hast forsaken me. Took the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts, balled it up, chucked it behind your back. I don't want to do these laws. I've got to live here in the land of Israel and do these laws. I don't want to do this. I want to go live with the Egyptians. I've got to sit here in Israel and follow all this strict commandment. Let me go chill with the Philistines. I like it better down there with them. And then you go down there and get your head busted. And you're wondering why. This is what's happening to our people. Once again, who is sending this cursing and vexation and this rebuke? Who is sending this evil after us? Is it Satan? No, there is no Satan. Let's get back to the beginning part of this verse. The Lord, Yah, shall send upon thee, Israel, cursing, vexation, and rebuke in all that thou settest thine hand unto for to do. No matter what you do, you can't get a break. Most High is sticking it to your left and right. So if you ever ask yourself, man, why am I going through all of these hardships? Why did I go down to this country thinking it'd be better? And all of a sudden I see there's the same situation. I'm dealing with the same hardships. I can't escape these plagues. What's going on? The whole Torah, the book of the laws and the prophets, from Genesis all the way to Malachi, explains to you over and over and over and over again what's going on and how you can fix it. You're going to understand clearly what transpired for you to get put in this mess. And the Most High is not unrighteous in his ways at all. He's going to tell you why he's busting your head. And he's also going to tell you exactly what you need to do to get him up off you. That way you can get him on your good side. All right. So he's not going to just beat us over the head for no reason. Not only that, yeah, he's going to stick it to us because he's just, but he's also going to tell us exactly how to stop this. So you're going to have a chance to turn back, to consider your ways and your doings. And once you realize what's really going on, then you turn back, and then all of a sudden he starts granting you grace, granting you peace. All right. So you understand clearly why he's going to do all of these things to us. And he says, until thou be destroyed. So the house of Israel is destroyed. Now, destroyed means a couple of things. Now, destroyed could mean flat out killing you. That's destroyed. Destroyed meaning that you're not what you're supposed to be. If you go to your local zoo and you see a lion in this zoo. He's got a big old pot belly. He's laying down. There's no roar in him. You come by, you see him laying there. He's in a pitiful state. He's a captive. He's not a lion in the wild who has to hunt for his food. He's not accustomed to running a pride. He's not accustomed to defending his territory and his pride. He looks like a lion, but he is behind a cage and he's been raised in captivity. You put him in the midst of real lions, he wouldn't know what to do. He wouldn't know how to act. He would be entirely different. Why? Because captivity has destroyed him. To you and I, he looks like a lion, but he does not function in the capacity of a lion. And this is what's going on with the men and the women of the house of Israel. Captivity has destroyed us. We're supposed to be a holy people, but we have been captive and held in the midst of unholy people. So we're just like a lion sitting in a cage that has all these great powers and capabilities, and the lion doesn't even know what his strength is. When the zookeeper comes in with a whip, that lion runs in a corner afraid of that zookeeper, when he has the capability to kill 10 zookeepers at once. But the lion has been destroyed due to his captive state. He's unaware of how powerful he is. And he's unaware that he's not even supposed to be in that position in the first place. This is the situation of the house of Israel. We are unaware that when we come through, the other nations will scatter, for the Most High is before us. We're unaware that we're supposed to be the head of all these nations, and they're supposed to be terrified of us the minute we come through. But because of captivity, we're unaware of how powerful we really are. We're unaware of how powerful this Torah is. We're unaware of who our God is. Captivity is a hell of a drug, as they say. They say that about cocaine, well, so is captivity. It destroys you. You see someone that's on cocaine, he's destroyed. Yeah, is that still Tyrone over there? Yeah, that is Tyrone, but he's a little different. He ain't what he used to be. He's been destroyed. He's a shell of his former self. He used to be creative, used to be bright, used to be outgoing. Now he's no longer any of these things. He has no idea what time of day it is. He's in a drugged out state. Israel is pretty much in a very similar predicament, unaware of what we're capable of, and some of us are uninterested in learning what we're capable of and what our purpose is, because we have grown accustomed to captivity. We have grown accustomed to wickedness. And so when you take wickedness and righteousness and put it before a man of Israel, he wants to choose the wickedness because that's what he has known. However, there's a remnant who will clearly make a distinction between wickedness and righteousness, and will turn away from unrighteousness and wickedness, and they will turn to righteousness. But this is but a remnant. And once again, this is because we have been captives for so long that we have grown accustomed to wickedness, because that's what we have been doing. And most people are comfortable with that which they are familiar with. And the older they get, the less subject they are to turn around and to change. And that's why most of the elders of Israel, the older people, will pine away in these nations and die. All right, so we understand clearly Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 20. We know exactly who's doing this to us. It's the Most High. It's not Satan. Verse 22 of Deuteronomy chapter 28. And Yah shall smite thee. Let me repeat that once again in case you think it's Satan busting you over the head, so you understand who it is that's killing your sons. It's the Most High killing them. So you understand who's diseasing you. It's the Most High putting these diseases on you. It's the Most High that brought you into the lands of your enemies to pine away, to make sure you pine away. This is a staging ground before we get returned back onto the land of Israel. Just like he killed us off in the wilderness, those of us that refuse to obey, he's going to kill us off in the midst of these nations. those of us who refuse to obey. So this is nothing but the killing fields. Verse 21. Once again, actually verse 22. We're at verse 22. And Yah shall smite thee with a consumption, and with a fever, and with an inflammation, and with an extreme burning, and with the sword. That's death in all of its manifestations. All these killings you see of our people, courtesy of the Most High. And with blasting, and with mildew, and they shall pursue thee until thou perish. Once again, we're going to perish in these nations. Okay? That's the purpose of us being here. This is the purging process, like purifying gold. It's not done in a day. It's a process. The unused and the unwanted part of the refinement process is known as the dross. Until you get that pure gold, you're going to have a bunch of stuff in there that really has no value. You throw it out. So what the Most High is doing right now, as he purifies us, as gold is purified, he's removing the dross. What is the dross, or what are the dross? The dross is the rebels. Man, I ain't trying to hear nothing about that law. And that's the rebels. So the dross has to be removed. And when the final product is done, it's going to be a man of Israel who is refined, that adhere to law. And those who are the dross, who refuse to adhere to law, and talking about there is no law, you will be dead and stinking someplace. Now, let's move to, we read clearly at verse 22, Most High said he's going to actually deal with us with the sword, and with blasting, and with mildew, and they shall pursue thee until thou perish. So we know this. We can't hide from these things. We're perishing left and right. Let's move down to verse 25. All right, before we get to verse 25, like I've said before, you see your sons getting shot down in the street, getting killed. The sword is after them. That's the Most High. Got us killing each other. Got other people killing us. Most High. It's the Most High at work. Don't you think for one second it's anyone else and give the glory of the Most High to anyone else. It's the Most High beating you up in these nations. Verse 25. Thou shalt cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Your enemies are these Christians that's killing you every day in these Western nations. That's who's killing you. Your enemies are also the Christians that look like you, that's killing you and selling you out every day in the midst of these nations. So you've got enemies within and enemies without. The enemy of a man of Israel are men of his own house. When the Most High said you will get no rest and no ease in these nations, he meant that. You got your brother that's a sellout, and your daddy that's a sellout, and your mother that's a sellout, and in some cases you're the sellout that will side with your enemies and call your name, call yourself the name of a man or of a people that has murdered and slaughtered your people for centuries. You have been destroyed. You have lost your entire mind. All right. We were at verse 25, I do believe. At verse 25, saying that we will be, let's start that again. Yah shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. They're killing you. Thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them, and shall be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. So, look for the house of Israel. People who look like me, look like you. You can find us in every nation. I've told you I'm coming from one of the Dutch colonies. My last name is long, 10 letters worth of long. So we are in the Dutch colonies, and the French colonies, and in English colonies, Portuguese colonies, etc., etc. All of these Christian European nations have been the murderers, enslavers, the killers, indoctrinators of our people. These are our enemies. And the Most High said he was going to remove us into all the kingdoms of the earth. That is why you can find the men of Israel in all of these many different nations talking real crazy, lost and confused. They're absolutely destroyed, mentally destroyed, psychologically destroyed, confused men, women as well. Okay, so we were going to be smitten. Okay, the Most High will cause us to be smitten. You see the top of chapter 25. It does not say, and the devil shall cause thee to be smitten before thy enemies. It does not say that. It says the Most High will cause you to be smitten before your enemies, because it's the Most High that's going to deliver you to your enemies, and it's the Most High that's going to put the Spirit upon your enemies to crack you upside your head. Doesn't get any more simpler than that. Let's move down to verse 27. Let's see what he's saying here again. The Most High is redundant. He's repetitive. There are no changes to him. Verse 27. Yah will smite thee with the botch of Egypt, and with the emeralds, and with the scab, and with the itch, whereof thou canst, or that thou cannot be healed. Thou canst not be healed. You can't be healed from this. The only person that's going to heal you from any of this is going to be the Most High. So you can appeal to your enemies all you want. You can appeal for justice all you want. You can't get justice from an unjust man. You asking for righteousness, you can't get righteousness out of an unrighteous people. You want righteousness, you better turn to him who is righteous. That's the Most High. You want justice, you better turn to him who is just, and that is the Most High. And while you're doing this, do understand you can't turn to the Most High and ask for justice if you are yourself unjust. You can't turn to the Most High asking for righteousness if you're righteous, if your ways are unrighteous. Unjust man can't get no justice. Unrighteous man can't get no righteousness. So if you want some righteousness, make sure your ways are righteous and appeal to him who is righteous. That's the Most High. You want some justice, make sure that your ways are just. Then you turn to him who is just, and then you will get justice. And there is no other way. So you understand that, because our people have been destroyed. Their minds have been destroyed. They're confused in these nations. They're hurt. They continue to get hurt, and they have no idea why. They're looking around. They're seeing what's going on, but they don't understand it. Let's go to verse 28. And verse 28, it reads, and Yah shall smite thee with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart. Blindness. I mean, captivity will destroy a man. A lot of our older men are broken in spirit. There's no fight in them. It's like that lion that's sitting in that cage for 15 years, for 10 years. You run up against that cage enough times to where, you know what? I can't get through this cage. I'm done. I'm just going to lay here and let this man bring me my food. Early in the morning, the lion has no need to roar. He has not caught a prey. In fact, he doesn't even know how to hunt. He's never hunted before. He doesn't know what a lion does. Captivity has destroyed him. A man comes in there with a whip and the lion runs in the corner and hides, when the lion has the capability to kill 10 men all at once. But he doesn't know this. Captivity has destroyed him. And this is where we sit right now. Captivity has destroyed us. So we see here where you're going to be mad. You see enough of this. I've seen some videos where our mothers and our aunties are just standing in the street screaming because their son has been gunned down, or their husbands have been gunned down, or they have been snatched up, or something just really, really foul has taken place. I've seen a video on YouTube where an older brother was just crying his heart out because one of our enemies, a European Christian, had murdered his son in cold blood. And this brother was crying his heart out, and I felt it for him. Meanwhile, he's got a big old cross on his chest while he's doing all this crying. And he doesn't understand why this has befallen him in his house. But it hurts me nonetheless when I see it. This man doesn't realize he's in idolatry. He doesn't realize that that cross on his neck is nothing but a graven image. He doesn't understand that. He doesn't understand what he's doing, and what he has attached himself to is something that can get him killed and bring curses on his head. So I have no doubt that that brother was a Christian. So he aligned himself and has aligned himself with the very people that has murdered and slaughtered his people for centuries. And then when he sees before his very face that the people that he has aligned himself with murdered and slaughtered his sons, now he crying out. Who you crying to? Who are you crying to? You calling yourself a Christian. You've got a big old cross on your neck. You're sitting in this courtroom. One of your enemies just murdered your son. Why are you crying out? You are in line with the very man that killed your son. You're in allegiance with him. Him and his people have been murdering your people for centuries. And somehow you align yourself with him. And then when he kills your son, he does exactly what you've been seeing for centuries. All of a sudden you're crying out to whom? And that's why you will get no justice. And that's why you're in a state of confusion. All right. State of madness. This type of oppression, you're seeing this thing day in, day out. You're facing it in the boardroom. Our children are facing this stuff in K-5. We're seeing this oppression. We're getting this verbal abuse day in, day out. We're dealing with this unrighteousness. It's beating us over the head every day. It will drive you mad for the sight of thine eyes. So that's why in order to have some sanity, in order to have some peace, you have to turn to Torah. Torah is the extension of the Most High's mercy. It is the Most High's sanctuary in the midst of all of this wickedness. Is this Torah right here. So when you turn to Torah, then everything makes sense to you. You start understanding what it is you're seeing. Okay, I see why the Most High done killed him. I see why he killed his son, because this man is out of order. Okay, all of this makes sense. Let me turn back to the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, precepts. That way I won't be one of these men confused. It's one thing when harm is being done to you, but it's bad when it's being done to you. You can't figure out why. And you're seeing this everywhere you go. It will drive you absolutely mad. And that's what we've got going on. A bunch of madness. Our people are going crazy. We really need some counseling. But the counseling that we need is not someone sitting you, not your enemy sitting you down on his couch talking to you, which is amazing. Many of our people have all of these problems, and they go sit down on the couch of their enemies, and their enemy who has not experienced anything that we're experiencing is going to counsel you. Do you see how foolish that is? You go sit down and you have a man counseling you who is making all kind of plans to kill you, and he's going to counsel you on what? The only counsel you need is Torah. Let me say that again. The only counseling you need is Torah. Walk within that, and you will find some protection, and you will find some peace. It is the only sanctuary that the Most High have left us in the midst of these nations. You can find Genesis to Malachi, quote unquote, the book of remembrance. You can find it in any of these nations. And that is the extension of the Most High's mercy. He did not leave us hanging in these nations. He has left a pathway for us to return back onto him. Simple. Verse 29. And thou shalt grope at noonday. Noonday is bright as all get out outside. You should not have a problem seeing when the sun is at its highest peak. But we do. For our eyes are open, but we can't see. And to grope is to feel your way around, meaning you don't know where you're going. You're moving around in darkness. Darkness is akin to sin. So no matter how bright it is outside, you're still groping because you can't see, because you have no light. The light that you need by which to see is known as this law. All right. So we're groping out here, feeling our way around because the Most High has blinded us. He has made us deaf to where we don't even want to hear the law, and made us blind to where the things that we're seeing, we can't make sense of it. In fact, most of it, if not all of it, we're not allowed to see at all. All right. So the Most High, it says clearly here at verse 28 of Deuteronomy 28, Yah shall smite thee with madness and blindness. Yeah, you're crazy. And astonishment of heart. All right. We're dealing with all of these things. We're a broken and destroyed people. All right. And he would have us groping at noonday, verse 29, and thou shalt grope as noonday as the blind gropeth in darkness. Darkness is akin to sin. So if you groping in the dark, that simply means that you don't have the Most High's light before you. You don't follow any law. You have been told, and you are foolishly repeating that somehow the law is done away with. That's what your enemies told you, and that's what you believe. And for this very reason is why you are groping in darkness. Because if you're walking with the law before you, that's your light. That allows you to see where you're going. Hope that makes sense to you. And thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee. Ain't nobody coming to your rescue. All these good Christians, like I've told you about some of these open conversations that I have with enemies of ours, they want to say, well, I'm good. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm not like the rest of them. Yeah, you are. You're exactly like the rest of them. All right. So we're going to get to see clearly here. Ain't no man's going to save you, because when the bad Christian, according to them, when the bad Christian do something foul to you, the good one is not coming to speak on your behalf, because none of them are good. It's all idolatry. And that's what we need to understand. So no one is going to save you. No one is going to redeem you. You save yourself. You save yourself by turning back onto the law, statutes, judgments, and precepts. It's really that simple. All right. Let's jump to verse 32. Verse 32 of Deuteronomy chapter 28. And verse 32 reads, Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long. And there shall be no might in thine hand. Okay, well, in slavery, we know good and well they sold our sons and daughters. We know they fed them to alligators. We know they hung them. We know they raped them. And we know they killed them. And we can see right now before our own faces that our kids are mistreated, beaten up, spoken down to, not given a fair shake in all the educational system of these nations. Our children are facing it each and every day. They're getting it. All right. And there's no might in our hand by which to change any of this. So we were given unto another people. Okay. And our eyes shall fail with longing for them. Yeah, they take your son away. When they take your son away, you're hoping that you can see him again. But he's on that plantation in another state. If not, he's on a plantation in another country. They're moving you throughout the Caribbean, moving you throughout the West Indies, moving you throughout Central and South and Latin America, shipping your children left and right. Nowadays, the new plantation is a jail cell. So they're going to lock your son up in South Carolina and ship him to some plantation, aka the new jail cell, 5 or 6 states away. So now they're going to hurt you financially if you want to see him. You got to go travel. You got to spend some money. You're going to help keep this system alive. And now your son is in the brand new slavery. He's in a jail cell. That's the new plantation. So your sons are being stripped before you. So are your daughters. They're being locked up. They're being taken away. And there's no power and there's no might in your hands to stop it. They're either being taken away physically, i.e. shipped to jail cells left and right across the nation. And that's happening to our people in all places of the earth. Or they're being taken away before your face. They have fallen victims to the traps and snares set by your enemies. Drugs and alcohol and everything else that destroys a people that's in captivity. Not just that. Some of us, there's been times when, yes, and we're seeing it now, where a different people will take our children. Come and take your sons, take them to the plantation way across the way that you can't go to them. take them to a plantation on another nation or in another country. But now it's so bad that other people don't need to come and take our children anymore. We're actually giving our children to them. You're going to have your son playing football, and you want to just hand them over to these colleges. The colleges make all types of money off of your son. Your son may have all types of brain injuries. You're doing all of this madness in order to get some money. And even when you get the money can't insulate you from these curses. So you're going to take your son to one of these football teams, these NFL teams. It's nothing but a plantation. That's all it is. So are these places of employment. These are plantations also. All these places are doing are taking away the best and brightest and taking it in the midst of our enemies, that our enemies may profit from it. We get a couple of scraps from the whole deal. None of it amounts to anything that we can do anything with, because all this money is being held in our enemies' banks. There's this saying that Black America has XYZ buying power, one of the top 10 nations on the earth via GDP. But all of Black America's money is held in its enemies' banks, which means Black America has no money. That's what that means. In all the house of Israel, regardless of where you are, you don't have any money, because all of these nations, including the African nations, all of their money is ran by the European Roman Christian, who is nothing but their enemies. If your enemies have your money in his banks, dummy, you don't have any money. All right. Now, let's move over to, we're going to go back to verse 31. Let's do that. That's done on purpose. We're going to move back to verse 31. Verse 31 reads, "Thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes, and thou shalt not eat thereof. Thine ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face, and shall not be restored to thee. Thy sheep shall be given unto thine enemies, and thou shalt have none to rescue them." All your stuff, all your substance is being taken before your face. Everything you've got being taken, being stripped. You're being robbed. You're being robbed, and you can't stop it. You know who's robbing you, just like you know who's killing you. But you don't have the gall to say, you know what? You're doing it. You have done XYZ to my people. It's hard for you to point out to that man what he's doing, because you done joined yourself unto him. So you can't tell him to his face, the Most High have not put a spirit upon you to strengthen you against your enemies, because you don't walk in Torah. You're still in the dark, trying to cling on to your enemies. The minute you let go of wickedness and turn to righteousness, then you have to let go of your enemies, for your enemy is wicked anyway. Two cannot walk together lest they be agreed. So when you let go of wickedness and turn unto righteousness, you can't walk on the same path as your enemies, because they are not on a path of righteousness. I hope that is something that's clearly understood to the listener and those who are in this book. We have been sent into the lands of our enemies. Our enemies don't know righteousness. There's no righteousness in these lands. Truth perishes in these lands. So how silly can you be siding up with the people in these lands when you know the end result of them is their destruction? Something for you to consider. There's no righteousness in these lands. If anybody understands that clearly, it should be you, O Israel, for you see how they deal with you. They're unrighteous in all of their ways, not some, but all. Let's jump to verse 34 of Deuteronomy chapter 28. And verse 34 reads, "So that thou shalt be mad for the sight of thine eyes, which thou shalt see." Yeah, all this oppression, all this unrighteousness, all of this blatant injustice before your face, you have seen it happen to you. You're going to see it happen to your children. You're going to see it happen to your grandchildren. You're going to be able to see your seed. What does that mean? Isaiah chapter 53. A man's seed goes both ways. His seed goes from those that preceded him back in the day, and it goes to those that will be coming that's before him. So when you see your seed is when you start identifying that your father is you, your grandfather is also you, and going on through the line, you can verify through your paternal line all the errors that you have made in times past. And now you to take, once you have corrected yourself from your past errors and you understand where they have been infringing and disrespecting and disregarding the Most High's law, as you come awake, now what you do, you right those wrongs. And you correct the errors of your ways by turning to the Most High, asking for forgiveness for your forefathers before you, because your forefathers before you is nothing but you in past generations. And so now you take your son and you teach him the way that is right. That way he may go forward in Torah and teach that to his sons. That way when you die and you're dead and stinking in that ground, you return into the ground like the rest of your forefathers, then you have left a better version of you on the earth. You have corrected your ways. You are a repairer of the breach. For your son is nothing but a genetic replica of you. That is why our private parts are known as our reproductive organs. You pretty much reproduce yourself, and you get an opportunity to raise yourself. That way when you die, you leave a better you. But when I speak of better, I mean a more righteous you. All right. So we understand clearly that all of our substance is going to be snatched away from you. You're walking in disobedience. You really don't deserve to have nothing. It's really that simple. Let's look at verse 34. And verse 34 reads, so that thou shalt be mad for the sight of thine eyes. We've read this, which thou shalt see. Like I said, oppression, wickedness, unrighteousness, it wears on you. It does. Now, here's the thing. We have been placed in these many lands that we may pine away, that we may die. We were marched around the wilderness for 40 years. Why? The Most High had some killing he had to do. He had to kill off these rebels. And you know how our males are as rebellious as they come. Now, what time does? See, there's confinement and then there's greater confinement. Neely Fuller refers to greater confinement as a place such as a prison. But all the house of Israel, in all the nations of our captivity, we are all in confinement. We are in open air prisons of these nations. And we are to be aware of that. And these open air prisons and the violence that we're going to see and the unrighteousness and the injustices that we see is going to make you mad. It's going to make you upset. It's going to make you disgusted. It's going to have you confused because you can't understand how these people can be so foul. You can't understand how these people can be so unrighteous. You can't understand how they can be so unjust. It's beyond your understanding. And because of that, you will go crazy because you're trying to figure it out. You don't know why this happened to you no matter where you go. Why did this thing happen to my grandfather? Why is it happening to me? Why is it happening to my son? Why is it happening to my friend across the street? Why is it happening to my auntie down here? Everywhere you go. Drives you nuts. Have you confused. Okay? And that is what oppression will do. And that's why we're in the lands of these enemies, of our enemies, because the sentence that the Most High have sentenced us to do in these many different lands of ours, for many of us, that sentence is going to be a death sentence. For the rest of us, it's going to be nothing but hard time. Now, what hard time will do to a man and a leader and the leaders of any nation or its men, hard time softens a man. It gives him an opportunity to consider his ways and his doings for him to make them good. So for many of us that will be of a contrite spirit in these lands, the hard time that we're doing in these open prisons is nothing but an opportunity for us to consider our ways and our doings, and that we may turn around full 180 from this wickedness and turn to the Most High's righteousness. And for those of us who are adamant about doing wickedly and will not use these punishments of this hard prison sentence to turn, well, the Most High is going to kill you. There's nothing else to say on that. Verse 36. And verse 36 of Deuteronomy chapter 28 reads, And Yah shall bring thee and thy king, which thou shalt set over thee, unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known. And there and there and there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone. Gods, lowercase. In other words, idols. False deities that can't deliver you, can't save you, can't protect you, can't do nothing. All right. So it says here once again, Yah shall bring thee and thy king, which thou shalt set over you. So we were instructed clearly that we were not to set anyone to lead us that were not of our people. And that is why the house of Israel in America and everywhere else, we keep trying to have these people, okay? We're trying to fix my head covering here. Now, many of our people seem to want to vote for our enemies, thinking that somehow something good will come of this. Okay? When we do these things, it's not going to be to our benefit. We were instructed that we're not to vote anyone or to put anyone that's of the nations ahead of us. Here's a proof positive of that. I read earlier to you today that the house of Israel ought to be the head of all nations, that we're to be the head and not the tail, and that we're special above all people. So just imagine when the house of Israel decides that it wants to vote a stranger to lead us. Strangers, we're supposed to be ahead of them. So when you try to put a stranger ahead of you, you are going in reverse. It will never go well for you. And if you do vote a man of our own people to lead us, and that man does not lead us in righteousness, that also will not go well for you. And that's for our people to clearly understand. Got to make some adjustments to my keeper here. All right. So we understand clearly that when we start voting for people, make sure that number one, they're of our people. We're not to put enemies above us, because as a nation, we are supposed to be above all the other nations. So there's no need for you to vote in a man of another nation to lead you when he is unrighteous in all of his ways, and he's never supposed to be ahead of you in the first place. I hope that makes some sense to you, because some of our people we want to go against the grain. All right? And when you go against the grain, it's not going to go well for you. All right? So the king that we shall have over us, well, all the kings comes out of the house of Judah, or the tribe of Judah, and all the kings, which are correctly termed governors, all of our governors are sons of David. So we know clearly that some of these governors of David, these sons of David, when we got kicked out of the land into captivity, they were in the midst of us, because they went into captivity as well. So in all the nations which we dwell right now, there are many of the sons of David sitting in captivity with us right now. There's many of the house of Levi sitting in the captivity with us in these many nations right now. All right? And it's saying clearly here that when we get into these nations, it's telling you exactly who we're going to serve and what we're going to serve. So we got kicked out of the land of Israel because we refused to serve the one and true and only creator of the whole entire earth, the God of the house of Israel and the God of the whole earth. So he kicked us out into these many other nations. And he told us, he said, look, I'm going to kick you out into these nations because you will not obey my voice. While you're in these nations, while you are there, you will be serving gods of wood and stone and everything else. What you will not be serving, you will not be serving me. For I'm going to take all of my knowledge, wisdom, and understanding away from you. I'm going to turn my back on you just like you turned your back on me. And you will be in darkness. Why? Because I'm your light. And when I take me away, you ain't going to be able to see nothing. Because I am the light. The Most High is the light. His law is the light. And when you have no law with you, you don't have the Most High with you. You don't have any light. And that's where your problems will begin. When the Most High withdraw himself from you. No knowledge, no wisdom, no understanding, no light. In essence, now you're in darkness. You have no choice but to maneuver in wickedness because there's no righteousness in you at that point. So these are some of the things that we need to understand, that we are in these nations. Whatever it is we are serving in these nations is incorrect. The Most High made it plain that we will be serving gods that we didn't know and our forefathers did not know. You will never see JC mentioned out of the mouth of not one single prophet. Never. If you look up the words prophet, you will see Nehemiah, you'll see Moses, you can see Joshua, you can see Malachi, you can see Nahum, you can see Jeremiah, you can see Isaiah. These are prophets. Luke, Mark, John, Billy, Bobby, Timmy, Louis, Willie, Europeans, Romans, Catholics, Christians. That is the book of Catholicism. That is the book of the Romans. That is the book of the Europeans. You go to the front of this book right here, you're going to struggle to pronounce some of these names over here. Ain't no Tommy up here. No Louis. There's no Willie. There's no Luke. There's no John. There's no Mark. And there's no Timmy. None of that. These are Europeans. You're going to have to figure that out. All right? So we have to understand clearly that when we get in these nations, what we will be serving in these nations ain't going to be nothing but idols. Because the Most High pulled away from us, turned his back on us. We're out here in the wilderness roughing it. And that's what you need to understand. All right. Verse 37 of Deuteronomy chapter 28. And thou shalt become an astonishment. Folks wondering how come you ain't got no sense. How come you're so stupid that you're going to gun a man down for stepping on your shoes? How come you so dumb that a man will kill your son and you go in the back and make a deal and take some money? Ain't nobody on the planet going to do that with some sense. But you, O man of Israel, a man step on your shoe, you going to kill him or you going to fight him. But if he kills your son, you ain't got nothing to say. You want to hold hands, and you want to cry, and you want to march. But if he step on your shoe, you want to kill him. Your own brother step on your shoe on accident, you want to kill him. Your brother look at you wrong, you want to kill him. Your own brother walks through your neighborhood and he lives in a different neighborhood, you want to kill him. It ain't no different than your European white Christian who kills your son for going through his neighborhood. I'm telling you, you're one and the same. That black Christian is as dangerous, and more so because he looks like us, as the white Roman European Christian. They are both Christians. They both adhere to the ideology that our people are worthless and that they'll kill us. And that's why when one quote unquote black man Israelite walk through another area where other Israelites live, they will kill him, run him up out of there. It's no different than when a black man walks through, an Israelite walks through a neighborhood of the heathen, of the white European. They'll run him up out of there, kill him. Same behavior. Why? Same ideology. You're going to have to figure this out. The black Christian is a danger to all those who walk in righteousness, for he walks in unrighteousness. You could be black, white, Chinese, be whatever. If you walk in unrighteousness, you are a danger to the righteous, or you're an enemy unto the righteous. But a righteous man is not fearful of a wicked man. What for? For the righteous is reinforced, protected by the Most High. The unrighteous man have no protection. And the unrighteous man losing when he come up against the righteous. There's no other way. Because the Most High is going to prevail every time, not sometimes. So keep in mind that the ideology and the behavior towards our people is going to be the same from the white Christian and the black Christian. They both have disdain and disgust for the house of Israel. There are enemies. We have enemies within and we have enemies without. So we are to understand that. So we're serving these idols. All right. Let's jump to verse 30. Okay, we read 37. Let's jump down to, we've got 36 and 37 here. We know clearly we shall be, it says here that we shall be proverbs and bywords in all the nations where Yah shall ship us. Uh, Let me reread verse 37 in its entirety. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb and a byword, in word and whatever else they're going to call you. Among all nations, they won't call you by your name. The name that the Most High gives you, they ain't going to call you that. They got you calling you all kind of names. And you're so silly, like I've said before, when you call yourself what your enemies call themselves, you're a fool. You've lost your mind. So they call you N-word, and now you call yourself N-word too. It is a glaring example of your stupidity in these nations, of your dumbness, you being deaf and blind in these nations. You are just dumb in these nations. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whither Yah shall lead thee. Is the Most High got you in these nations? Verse 38, thou shalt carry much seed out in the field, and and shall gather but little in, for the locusts shall eat it. Anything you do, you're never going to reap the benefits that you deserve to reap. If you deserve to get 100% of that stuff, you ain't going to get but 10%. That's why all of our children are going into this music industry, making our enemies rich, and our people only get a fraction of that. We work for these companies, we get a small fraction of it, they get the lion's share. That's what this is speaking of right here. Okay, you can go put in all this work, but you're not going to reap all these benefits. You don't deserve to reap all these benefits because you want to walk out of line. So we're to understand these things. Proverb and a byword. We call ourselves what our enemies call us now. Well, why should we be shocked by this? If you are going to identify yourself as your enemies, this man has murdered and slaughtered my people all over the earth. Okay, I'm gonna call myself what this man calls himself, and I'm gonna say that I line up, that I am in alignment and in agreement with those who have murdered and slaughtered my people. Well, if this man calls me an N-word, well then when I look at these other people that look like me, I'll call them an N-word too, because I'm in line with this European Christian that has murdered me. Him and I, we're on the same page. So if he's calling black people an N, well I'll call them an N too, because I'm in line with him. I'm in agreement with him. Oh, he's killing black people. I'm going to start killing some black folks too. That's where we're at. All right? He's killing the house of Israel wholesale. You start doing it too. All right? This man kills our people, and then he gets others that look like him to act like they don't see it. That's what the European does. They don't see no unrighteousness in that. But then the quote-unquote Israelite, the black Christian, oh, he'll murder an Israelite. He'll murder his fellow brother. And then he has other Israelites, other black people who saw that, and they act like they didn't see it either. The same exact response and behavior of his enemies. And you wonder why you can't get ahead. You have been destroyed by this captivity. You have taken a hold of the ways, the ideologies, the actions, and the belief of your enemies. You are nothing but a Euro white Christian with a tan. You are an enemy unto the house of Israel that walks in righteousness. Something to consider. I'm talking to you during this whole chapter. That way you can kind of put it together to see the errors of your ways, that you may consider your ways and your doings and make it good. Now it says here clearly that the Most High said he was going to ship us to all of these nations. So it's not just one place that we will be. We were in one place when we dealt with the Egyptians, but now we're in all the nations of the earth. So it's gotten real. And there's nothing more real than real, because real is truth when you see it before your face. You can act like you don't see it, but you will feel the brunt of the Most High's blow. Verse 41. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. They're in all types of captivity. Back in the day, we know it was full-fledged slavery. Now it's still slavery. They throw them in prison. Same thing, you're working for 15 cents an hour, or whatever it is they pay you. If you think you're seeing an injustice being done to our people out here in these streets, you can't begin to fathom what's taking place behind bars in prison. Let me say that again. If you think that you're seeing the injustices of our people today in these streets, if this is making you mad for the sight of your eyes, if this is giving you sorrow of heart for the sight of your eyes, can you imagine what's going on with our brothers and sisters behind prison walls? You can't begin to fathom what's going on back there. If you are sad for the sight of your eyes that you're seeing in the street right now, the unrighteousness that you're seeing in the street, that you're seeing in the classroom, that you're seeing in the boardroom, and you're seeing everywhere else, you can't fathom the unrighteousness that's taking place. When an Israelite is laying in a hospital bed, he don't know his left side from his right side because he's unconscious and plugged up to everything. And he's got a family that doesn't understand what medicine is and what proper care may possibly be. You can't understand and begin to fathom what your enemies are doing to you in the medical industrial complex. You can't begin to even fathom that. Once again, there is no hiding place in the wrath of the Most High. None. So if you want any